Alright guys, welcome to my top 20 players list for VCT lock-in. This list is going to be very similar criteria to PlatChat's top 20 list that they do. It's a mix of how good I think these players are and how well they can help their team get deep into the tournament. So I'm not going to have players as high if I think they're going to go out round one or round two. Obviously, I still have some of those players because I think they're really, really good, but overall, there's a lot less of them. So yeah, let's get right into the video. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. And let's get back into the video. All right, and first up at number 20, we have Nookie, which might be a surprise to people, but I think he's a player that a lot of people are forgetting about how good he is. He only made Reykjavik last year with G2 with a terrible roster. Um, and he still looked good on that team at Reykjavik and before it and after it, despite obviously the team not looking very good. And he was IGLing at the time. Uh, I think this Giants roster is better than the G2 one last year. And honestly, I think they have a chance at upsetting either Koi or NRG. Definitely Koi in round two. And if they do, Nookie will be the main crux of that. And I also think he's very good, despite if they win that or not. And now at 19, we have King from Leviathan. Um, I think King is a really good player. I mean, his raise specifically last year was ridiculous. I think he was one of the best duelists in the world. Um, and I think he's probably, in terms of like a world ranking on that duelist, better than I'm ranking him here. But obviously, uh, if you watched the last video of my pick'ems, I have Leviathan losing to Zeta in the first round, where that kind of hampers King's ability to look good in an overall like tournament perspective. And he's also playing a new role, which can add some variance, even though I think he should be okay. But I do expect him to continue to play well and still be the 19th best player at this tournament. And now at number 18, I have Zekin, who might be eliminated round one against Fnatic. I think there's probably about a 60% chance they lose that game. But if they do manage to get past Fnatic, it would be off the back of Zekin and Tens just popping the hell off. And also, I think Zekin is too good to not be on this list. And now at 17, I have Chronicle. Um, he was on a struggling mech team last year. Uh, but it feels like a lot of the mech players, like him, Nats, and Redgar, are poised to bounce back in a big way. Especially when they're all playing like their main roles with Chronicle back on like the scan initiator, like Sova, hopefully, or even on the flex. I think would be better for him than that duelist role that they were playing. We'll get to Nats later, where he's going to be playing Sentinel now. But with Chronicle, I think he's on a team that, as long as they get past Sentinels, they're pretty much guaranteed to make top 8. So I think he will end up looking very good in this Fnatic system too, until they face 100 Thieves and then they just completely fall apart because it's Fnatic. And now at number 16, I have Leo, another Fnatic player. I think very similar story to Chronicle, except I think Leo will look just a little bit better, especially being able to like follow up behind these like I guess this duelist player in Durka, and I think Alfier will make a lot of space for them on the Sentinel, but I don't think he'll necessarily look that good. Spoiler alert, he's not on my list. Um, but yeah, I was extremely impressed with Leo at Copenhagen and at EMEA LCQ when he was on Guild, and he just feels like an extremely high floor player for this roster that really needed it, and I think he should look very good in this tournament. And now we have Jing at 15. A very, very similar story to Zekin, King, and Nookie, where I don't think Paper Rex will make it past the second round against the RX. And I honestly think there's about a 50-50 chance that they go out to Cloud9 before that. But Jing, who, in my opinion, was the second best player of 2022, obviously behind Ye. Um, I think he'll still look very good in these games, or at least pretty good. And he'll still be doing his Jing thing where he just double satchels at people, just knifing people all the time. He should be still a very fun player, regardless of how deep Faber Rex makes it, and obviously he'll still be very good. And now at 14, I have Asana, who is the first 100 Thieves player on my list, and the first player that I have making playoffs. I don't really know what to call that much, but I think that's what they're officially calling it. Um, I think 100 Thieves has potential to have even more players on this list than I have them at, if they go deeper than I expect at fourth. Well, tied third, fourth. But yeah, about Asana. I'm about as high on him as anybody really is, as you can tell. I think as his future, I think he can potentially be the best player in the world at some point in his career. I don't know when that will be, but there's not a lot of players that I think that about, think that highly about. And I also like this flex role for him is awesome. I really like him on the fade, especially in the KO. Um, I'm really excited to see him at this tournament, like continue to grow. Um, though the one thing that I get weirded out about with him is a lot of people think he's like a super inconsistent player, which just isn't true. Um, he's been fairly consistent on this version of 100 Thieves. Obviously, when they get like destroyed, he's not having a good game. Like, but that doesn't happen that much. And like on old 100 Thieves, like before Sean and Mike came, he was inconsistent because he had to carry the team all the time, and whenever he didn't have a good game, 100 Thieves didn't have a good game. But now it's whenever 100 Thieves doesn't have a good game, he doesn't have a good game. It's not necessarily tied to him, which I think is very good for both the team and him, and why I think he is this high, and why I think 100 Thieves will go as far as they do. And now at number 13, I have Buzz, who is the tip of the spear for the team that I think will win the tournament in DRX. Um, as far as I can remember, he always looks good on especially the Jet, but the Duelist in general. I thought his Raze was okay. We've never seen him play Neon, but I think he can do it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton to say other than that he is the Duelist player for the team that I think will win the tournament, and also DRX, so he will look good. And now at 12, I have Nats, who is a former best player in the world back in like late 2021. As I said earlier, with Chronicle, he was on a struggling mech team in 2022. But he's back on his main role, where I think he should be able to dominate and be one of the best sentinels in the game. Spoiler alert, I do not have him rated as the highest sentinel on my list. I think most of you, if you know anything about EU, will know who I have higher than him. But I don't know. I think he'll still be very, very good and a lot more comfortable than he was on like the chamber last year, or even like on the smokes. But even I think that was good. I think his smokes were really good, especially his Astra. So I think he could play that if he needs to, but I think Redgar will be playing that for them. But also, like, with how people play the game now, I don't think Nat's old playstyle from Berlin will work now, but it will still be very effective because he is so, so good. And number 11, I have Artis, who was probably a top 5 to 10 player of 2022. And he's in a system with NRG, the former Optic Core, that in the past, like even before Ye, has made star players look like superstar players. And obviously, Artis is not as good as Ye. It's kind of alluding to the next player. But I still think he'll be able to look like, not necessarily how Ye looked, but very, 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 very good, and probably be one of the better players in the tournament, as I have him rated at 11. And now at number 10, I have Ye, which I kind of alluded to earlier. I think Ye will continue to look very good in this Cloud9 team, but similar story to Jing. I think he will, I don't know, not look as good because he's playing against Paper Rex and then DRX in back-to-back games probably, even if he even beats Paper Rex. But in a more like jet heavy meta, I don't think he'll be as dominant. I still think he can be the best player of this year. And if you told me back in, I don't know, December that I would have Ye at number 10 on my top 20 for this event, I would have called you crazy. But this is more to do with where I think Cloud9 will place rather than how well I think they'll incorporate Ye. Next up at number 9, I have Stacks from DRX. He's one of the best support players in the world on a team that I think will go extremely deep and win this tournament. He frags, he clutches, does all that stuff on top of IGLing, which I think probably boosted him up like 3 or 4 spots over like the Ye, Artis, Nats, and he probably would have been at like 12 above Buzz, if not for the fact that he is the IGL, which I didn't really like take into account for many other players. But I was already going to put Stacks on this list, regardless of if he was IGLing, so I decided to bump him up a little bit because all these players are so close that I think the IGLing does matter. And now at number 8, I have Xiao, who is a player that I feel many, many people have forgotten about, especially with all the other talent on this Navi team. He was the best clutcher of 2022. I would assume stats would back that up, but I really don't care if they do. He was the best clutcher, just straight up. Also, just great with like general utility usage. He's extremely flexible, and I really only see him going up in a team that I expect to get better than that old FPX team. And now at number 7, we have Durka, who during 2022 was constantly put in the top 5 of these kind of lists, but I'm not necessarily predicting that he will get worse. I'm just predicting that a lot of other players will pass him. In this new meta, he is playing the Raze and the Jet, which he's better at. I do completely understand that point that a lot of people have, because a lot of people do have him higher than me. But for me, I think for my predictions, I have him going out against 100 Thieves in top 8. And I think he will struggle in that game, especially against that caliber of 100 Thieves team and Cryo, who honestly was better than him when Fnatic and Xset played at Champions. So we'll just have to see. I think if Fnatic do beat 100 Thieves, though, it will be off the back of Durka, and that is why he is this high. Now at number 6, we have CNED, who is another player similar to like Nats and like the Mech guys. Looking to have a bounce back year from 2022. He was probably a top 5 player of 2021 in my opinion. And also, CNED gets to go back on his main. I guess for the other guys it was Roll, but now it's CNED's main agent in Jet. He's also in a much, much, much better system, and then there's a lot better players around him than he did on Ascend. Almost forgot the team. I think he'll probably end up being the best opper of this tournament. So strictly, or probably the best Jet as well, but not the best overall duelist. And now on to the top 5, where I have Mako at number 5. He was the second best controller of 2022 behind Marbed, so obviously he's the best controller from 2022 that's still playing. He's not the highest one on my list though, but still top 5 in the tournament because I think he will be the best player on DRX, who I think will win the tournament. Uh, he is probably the best player in the Pacific region just for the whole year, not just this tournament. I don't know. He's just insane. Like what Sideshow said about him on the most recent Plat Chat episode. I think that perfectly encapsulates what I think about Mako. And now at number 4, I have Osbos, a top 3 player from 2022. He's playing in front of the home crowd on Loud in Brazil. My only concern with him is he's losing 2 of the best support players in the world in Saucy and Panacada. They're going to Sentinels. So I just have doubts that he will take that jump up to number 1, especially with these 3 players that I have ahead of him. I feel one's already there, and then the other 2, I have a really, really, really like large amount of confidence in them to take massive jumps both at this tournament and this year. And now at number 3, I have Bang, who is my number 1 controller player on this list, and a player that I honestly think will have a similar year to what Marv had last year. Maybe not like everyone already knew Marv was good, but and I mean honestly everyone already knows Bang is good now, but I think he will get better as the year goes on. Uh, I think he'll probably get higher than this 3 ranking in other tournaments, if not stay here the whole year, which would be kind of crazy. But I don't know. I just think I have insane expectations for this kid. Uh, since he just seems to keep getting better and better and better. Like it's insane how much of a different player he is from like even his TSM days, his like early 100 Thieves days, and like stage 1 of last year. Stage 2 he improved, switching to controller. He was so much better. And then in their champions and LCQ run, he was really, 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 really good. And then at Red Bull, he was playing like the best controller in the world, as I have him rated. And now I have Sagetsu at number 2. I think he's the best Sentinel player at this tournament. And unlike a lot of the other better Sentinel players in this tournament, he had a really, really great 2022. I also think he can flex onto like initiator agents and like smokes and stuff if he needs to. And even with that, I think Navi having a lot of success in this tournament, which I predict to happen, I think they'll make the finals. I think he can be one of the main reasons for that, if not the main reason. And now, finally, at number 1, I have Cryo, who I think there's a lot of similarities between 100 Thieves picking up Cryo and Envy/Optic picking up Yay in like late 2021. All Optic needed at that time was an insane opper, and then that team was complete. Same thing with 100 Thieves here. Optic had an insane core, as I just said, and 100 Thieves, I think, has the same thing. And just another similarity. I think Cryo in this tournament is set up to have a similar performance to what Ye had at Berlin, which is one of the better tournament performances of all time. Obviously, there's only been, 6 international lands, so there's not really too much room for that. Obviously, Ye had insane performances at both Reykjavik and Champions this year. There was 10s at the first Reykjavik, and then Nats at Berlin was also kind of crazy. But I think Cryo is set up to have one of the better tournament performances of all time. And I don't know. I think he'll look like the best player in this tournament and has a chance to be by far the best if 100 Thieves make it further than I think they will. And now my top 21 player, which, if you don't know, is kind of like the player that if things go against what people expect, will be on this list and be like a lot better than what people expected them to be. I have Texture here. He's the jet player for Global Esports, and I think if they beat Vitality, which is very possible, then I think they should be favored against the winner of Zeta and Leviathan, two teams that I think will be kind of weak, but not crazy, or not like bad by any means. And then I think he'll just probably be the main reasons that they beat those two teams if Global managed to make both of those upsets. All right, and that's it for my top 20 list of my players. Here's the list on screen right now. Yeah, I think some of these are kind of spicy takes. I don't think they're all that bad. Obviously, these lists are kind of difficult, and they're especially for this tournament are mainly based on like predictions and like who I think is going out where. Like some of the Leviathan players would be higher, especially if I knew who was playing on that team. I probably would have had either Kesnet or Taco on this list instead of Nookie, maybe, even though I still think they're going to get bounced round one. I mean, actually, if both of them were playing, then I don't think they get bounced, but that's saved for a later date. But yeah, that was my top 20. I'll see you guys in the next video, which will probably be my NA Challengers recap, depending on if I want to make another video in between that. And yeah, bye bye.